So I recently removed my bumper cover to do some modifications, and I figured it's a good opportunity to explain some of the changes that are required to get the USDM bumper rebar underneath the JDM front end. The parts I'm going to talk about are the actual USDM bumper reinforcement, the USDM bumper foam, along with the plastic gussets on both sides, the JDM bumper support here, and then the changes required for the actual bumper cover. So I mentioned that the rebar does have to be raised slightly above its normal hanging position. If you look in here, on both sides they have this see that white hook pointed thing? You can see that my rebar is about 1/4 inch above it, and then these bolts over here are have oversized holes so that you can manipulate its position and snug it down. So it's going to take a little bit of positioning to get the spacing right. For my headlights, in order for things to be spaced upright, this lowest tab here is about 10 millimeters, 3/8 of an inch spacing between the top of the rebar and the bottom of the headlight, pretty much all the way across. So that's what I need to get it. So that could be a good starting point to get it, you know, at 3/8 or 10 millimeters above the rebar. Alright, so here's the foam insert. The modification is really easy. All you gotta do is trim off the top so that it's flush with the top of the rebar. You can do this with a bandsaw, hacksaw, sawzall, whatever. You're not gonna see it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Reason for that is so that it can clear the bumper reinforcement, which is now just more of a spacer at this point. It's actually just going to sit right underneath that portion here. So here's the plastic gusset I was talking about. They're actually the same on both sides, just flipped over. And what we're concerned with is these tabs here, and specifically the bottom tab, which is down here and cut short. You really can just cut off the whole thing, and the reason why it needs to be cut off is to clear the fake vent portion on the bumper cover, so it'll actually contact here. So by trimming this part down to about 1/4 inch tall or off entirely, it will allow it to fit nicely into this area here without making contact with that fake vent. So this is the metal JDM bumper support, which is the equivalent of the USDM rebar. So definitely a lot less substantial than the USDM one. Its main purpose is to hang the bumper cover. So I talked about drilling out 3 spot welds on each side. These are the 3 where the one bracket was, and that would bolt on to the core support. You can also see it over here where they used to be. I did mention that it should be spot welded to the rebar. And after the front end being on there for 10+ years, not having to do it, I take that back. I don't think you need to spot weld it. Not only that, it would be very difficult to remove the bumper cover in the future. So it just sits there. You can kind of see where it's sat, but there's no excessive vibration or anything like that. So I recommend against spot welding it onto the rebar. The next modification is to the bumper cover itself. You kind of see this shape cut out of it. Before it's cut, it actually looks more like the bottom, where it's just fully enclosed. And what you're trying to clear is this profile here in the rebar. So It's good to have the rebar off the car and place it over the bumper cover, and then, you know, trace it on. And again, you know, I've been noticing people posting saying that the reinforcement bar height varies depending on, you know, your car. For my car, I did have to raise the rebar a little bit to make it snug up against the headlights. So again, there's a lot of measuring twice and cutting once going on with this bumper cover. I mentioned in a separate thread that the JDM fender liners are actually the same thing as the USDM ones, with two exceptions. If you look real close at this area here, you'll see a slit. If you look real close at a USDM fender liner, there'll actually be a real thin scribe line, pretty much telling you where to cut. So it's a cut that's maybe, I don't know, just less than 4 inches from this point here out to the edge. And again, there is a scribe line there to tell you where to cut. The other difference is if you look real far in there, you'll see a cutout there. That's to gain access to the screw that holds the bumper cover to the fender. Again, there's a scribe lines in there to tell you where to cut. The shape is kind of a parallelogram trapezoid shape, so kind of look out for that, and then, you know, go ahead and cut away.